Hello, you've made it to the fourth video in the video series for the Battle of the Classes competition. If you haven't watched the videos 1 through 3, they are linked below in the description. You can also contact me, Liana, also linked in the description. Kelly, take it away.
Customer interviews. So we just talked about how you need to know the customer, you need to understand the value prop, but how can you really know this? And the answer is you have to test it. You have to make sure that your guesses on who the customer is and what the value prop is for that customer is correct by talking to your customers and running tests to understand from their feedback would they actually be willing to buy your product, buy your service, buy your idea. Okay, so you got to guess first. Guess on the value prop, guess on the customer segment, and you don't necessarily need to change both of them. Like you find out, for instance, that this is the wrong customer, you could potentially still have a good solution and you just need a different customer. Or you could find you have a really good customer with a real problem, but potentially you just need to change the idea a little bit, to tweak it a little bit so that you're providing the value that's really important to that customer. So knowing these things can be really helpful for knowing can be really helpful for understanding is this going to be successful, but if you're just guessing at first or you're not testing with customers, you can't really know. Okay, so here's an example of how that kind of went wrong, why you have to test your guesses or assumptions. So Segway, I'm sure many of you have heard of Segway, and it's this transportation little wheeling device that they thought when they built it was going to be for people in like very dense urban areas that had problems with public transportation. So similar to kind of what Lyft thought their initial target market was. People that were having trouble with subways did not want to, spend the money every day on subways, or just didn't want to walk long distances. And this was intended to be that innovative device that was going to solve that problem. And there is a problem. There was a problem. There still is a problem with dense urban areas and people that can't get transportation easily. But the problem was with the Segway, so this isn't necessarily the right solution for the customer. Those people that were in these areas, they were probably living in small apartments, that were spending money on public transportation. Like the idea of spending the $4,000 or whatever, I think that was the price of the Segway when it started, may have ultimately made them more money or netted them more money. But the spending of that upfront $4,000 was not something that made sense for that customer. It wasn't the right answer for them. So other solutions that were working well enough, they weren't going to get this Segway, and it ended up not being that market that they wanted. And on top of that, there was other problems with the use. So if you're thinking of that customer that was in this small apartment in an urban area, where do you store this Segway? What's the infrastructure for the Segway? How do you charge the Segway? So there were all sorts of other issues that made it seem like a good idea from the outside, but in actual practice for their customer, it wasn't necessarily the right answer. And this is a good example, though, of how potentially you can have some sort of value or some sort of invention, but it doesn't necessarily have the right customer at first. So although it wasn't what they had in mind to have this go to like every single person in an apartment in New York City, they were still able to capture a customer because, as you've seen, Segways are, something that mall cops use and tour groups use, and they still are selling them just to a totally different customer. So again, that's an example of how you can kind of pivot on your customer if you have some sort of invention. But ideally, you want to make sure that whoever you think your customer is at first has the right problem and you're providing the right value so that you don't have to make that change after already going to market, which is what Segway had to do, but they had a little bit more money behind them, so they were able to make that change, and definitely still not the opportunity that they thought it was going to be. Okay, so when you're testing the ideas, you have to understand your assumptions, really question your assumptions around who is your customer, what is the problem they have, and what solution are you providing? In other words, what value you're providing them. So I'm going to use an example from the book Talking to Humans. And if you're interested in this or you want to learn more about how do you correctly craft questions to get good user feedback, I'd highly suggest checking out Talking to Humans. It's online. It's a free PDF, and that's where this example is from, so you can kind of learn a little bit more about this example by going to that free PDF. It's like an 85-page book, free. So it's a quick read, easy to read, and again, if you're interested in this, want to get good user feedback, definitely check it out. Okay, so this example is about a team that's designing a new pillow. So this pillow is an environmentally and animal-friendly down, so not the kind of regular down we usually see, with a bouncier feel and a cooling side. So they have this technology or this product that they want to understand some of their initial assumptions so they can test them. So what are those initial assumptions that they're actually going to question? So first of all, who's your customer? What's the problem you're solving? Is this the best solution? Is this the right price point? What are the competitors and what are the issues of the competitors? Can you provide more than the competitors? So thinking about your assumptions around that area. So let's just think about what this team might be considering. Let's say customer. So again, you want to make sure your customer is pretty narrow so that you can make sure they have a problem. And if they don't, you can either switch to a new customer or provide for the problem that customer is having. So in this scenario, the team that's designing this new pillow, they thought their initial target market, that first customer that would care the most, would be new college graduates who were just starting their first job and getting their first apartment. So they thought, they care about the solution because they care about this environmentally friendly, animal friendly down, but they still wanted a pretty good pillow. So the problem was they were probably using not great pillows and probably didn't have the best support. And this solution would be a good solution and provide that value for them. The price point would be something to assume based off of your competitors, based off of what you could actually provide. So if you could keep moving forward at a certain price point, like for instance, if you can't manufacture this pillow without a certain price point, that's definitely something to keep in mind. But also understanding, like, what does the competition look like right now? Will they be willing to pay a premium on that? So understanding how much value you're providing essentially, or what is their budget that they would put toward solving this problem. Okay, so first, who are you talking to? We just went over, a guess was that it was this new college graduate, and we're clearly defining that group. We're saying, all these people that are just leaving college have a job, maybe even saying a job in a certain income range or in a certain industry or in a certain place, that you could just test really narrowly in that area to see the trend and the feedback, to see if this is something that customer really cares about. And when you put this product in the market, they're actually going to buy it because they have a problem. This is going to solve it for them. Okay, so how do you go about finding those people you need to talk to? So a quick note on COVID. Most of the time I would say for customer interviews, it's really important to actually go to where they are. So for looking for new college grads, where could you find new college grads? Potentially, people who had just graduated, potentially on college campuses. But in certain places where college graduates hang out, there's certain probably bars or events or stuff like that where new college graduates would be. But right now, obviously, we're not doing any of that. So no in-person interviews for the sake of this class or this event, but normally it's really good to talk to people in person. For this, you're going to use Zoom interviews or phone calls. And how do you do that? Well, essentially find people that you know who are in that target market and ask to talk to friends of them that are in similar situations. So you shouldn't be talking to your friends to ask them the questions about this idea because they're going to probably not give you the best feedback because they know you, but talk to the people that they can connect you with that are in that same demographic and able to still provide really good feedback, but aren't necessarily going to be biased by being your friend. So at this point, it would be, I'm looking for people I know that have recently graduated from college to connect me with other people who have graduated from college so I can talk to them on Zoom or in phone calls. So 2 quick things here. Why not surveys and why not market research? So surveys can be helpful in a very, very limited space. And it's basically if you have a very narrow question that's a yes or no, and that's not even the best example, but some sort of feedback on something they like more. So for instance, if you're getting branding feedback and you want to see what colors do your customers like more, or what pictures they like more or something, you can kind of test that in a very narrow survey. But when it comes to actually understanding, is there a problem for your customer? When it comes to knowing their priorities, understanding their story, which is what you need to be doing at first. When you're testing that first customer to understand if there's any value, you need to be just thinking about, do they even have a problem? Am I going to meet their priorities? And when it comes to that, surveys aren't going to be that helpful because when was the last time you filled out a survey and thought to yourself, well, I'm going to really spend my time and energy and put as much thought into this as possible? Probably never. That's just not generally how people complete surveys. And then another way people have surveys is, they have these arbitrary rankings or scales. They say how much does it matter to you that you have a environmentally friendly pillow on a scale of 1 to 10? Well, what is someone's 1? What is someone's 10? You just don't really know that thing. It's hard to compare. So surveys don't do a good job of really helping you understand your customers' needs or priorities, or helping you understand if they'd actually buy something. So talking to customers is going to get you much more information. Same with market research. There's really not going to be any information that's going to tell you if the customer's going to buy, if this is the right solution you're creating for a problem. It's probably just going to tell you if there's a problem. So you can look at market research and say, oh, I see this is an issue. Like for instance, with the Segway, you could probably tell that there were people who were upset with their transportation in these dense urban areas. You could tell that there was an issue, probably with pollution with this dense urban area transportation. But just because you could see that's an issue doesn't mean you've created the right solution. So don't rely on these things, and don't even rely necessarily on these customer interviews. We're going to talk about how to test that even further next. But talking to your customers, really understanding their needs before you make assumptions and then bring this idea to market, spending all that time and energy and potentially a lot of money on building something you don't know if someone wants, that's really important. So testing, talking to customers, learning from your customers is very important. Okay, so how do you do that? So we have these assumptions now about this pillow, but you want to have a script ready too. And if you can, start it off with using the student card. So you're a student, you're doing research, don't necessarily have to tell them you're working on a startup or working on a business idea, because it kind of disarms people a little more to say, I'm a student, I'm doing some research. So you want to have these 3 to 5 questions ready and your script that are aimed at challenging those assumptions. So what kind of questions would you ask? So if you want to challenge those assumptions, but you still want to keep your questions open-ended because you don't want to lead your customer to exactly what you want to hear. You basically just want to know, what are their priorities when it comes to pillows? What do they care about when it comes to pillows? So asking those kind of open-ended questions that'll tell you that is what you're looking for, to see if this customer has the problems that you think they have and you can provide the value you think you can. So here are some good questions. So when was the last time you bought a pillow? Why did you go looking for a pillow? How did you start shopping for this pillow? Why did you choose the one you bought? And after you bought it, how did you feel about the pillow purchase? So I highlighted the last 2 because I think those are the most important. So why did you choose this pillow? So what did you care about when you were buying this pillow? And after you bought it, how did you feel? Because if you bought it for some reason that didn't end up being important to you, that's good to know too. So now this person knows there's other things that are important, or they value other things, have different priorities. So essentially it's asking, what do you like and not like about your pillow? What is a good pillow for you? And the top 2 questions about, when was the last time you bought a pillow? Why did you go looking for a pillow? Well, that speaks to what time in your life you're actually looking for pillows. So that gives you a lot of good information too, if you're starting to sell these pillows, to see when are people actually looking for pillows? So if you're asking this question to new college grads and they all say, yeah, I bought a pillow as soon as I got out of college. It was the first thing I bought when I left when I left college. That's great to know. That's essentially validating the idea. If they say I've had the same pillow since I was in high school, maybe not the best customer to go after. And then the question of how did you start shopping? So that depends. That's a good thing to know when you're trying to advertise, right? If you're actually getting to market with this pillow, you want to be able to see where did someone start shopping? Were they shopping online? What were they looking for? Where can you put ads? That kind of stuff. And also in this particular example, they thought they would sell online and that's how they're going to reach customers. So that was important to them as well. But from this information, you should be able to tell if a customer has that problem. So after asking these questions, you should be able to see, what does your customer care about? What are they currently doing? Is there anything you can add value to? So if every single person you talk to says, this is the pillow I have and it's perfect, I love X, Y, and Z about it, well, then those are the priorities. And you can still create something that still speaks to those priorities. Or if there's a problem with their pillows that you keep seeing over and over again, create something that speaks to those problems. But it's really all about knowing your customer, knowing what they want, and figuring out if what you're doing adds value. They would actually pay for something that does this, some pillow that provides the value that they're looking for. As a quick note, when they did this research in the example, in the Talking to Humans book, they noticed after talking to a lot of new college grads that a lot of new college grads were actually not buying pillows after they left college. It was not their first purchase, but they did notice a lot of people were interested in a better quality pillow when they were making big life changes. So for instance, if you were to get a new job and you move across country, you're moving in with a significant other, that is the time when people were actually looking to spend money on pillows. And so they were able to still have this idea for this pillow, but shift to their customer. So shift to a new customer. So kind of similar to Segway.
All right, you're more than halfway done with the videos. Make sure to head to bit.ly/VOTC_quiz4. You know the drill. Take the quiz. I will see you in video number 5.